Welcome back, dear friends. I can't remember what this video is about because I've already edited it, about to upload it, and realised I hadn't said welcome back, dear friends. But it's the next part of building the epizooscope, so hopefully it'll be interesting. Look, I've made a thing. What a lovely thing it is too. That just fits together beautifully. And then last night, once the outer bit was dry, I glued some 10mm bits around. I haven't stained it yet and I haven't finished drilling the holes, but what I've just done is to make these little laser cut bracket things to support the screen. With a little bit of experimentation. Here's the screen. You see that? That's the wrong way up. Heavens to... no, it isn't. I don't know what I'm doing. But look. Isn't that lovely? And then these little clips will just spin round. I've made the holes for the screws too big so they fall out, but that's okay, we can sort that out. You get the idea. And then it lines up perfectly. I'm so pleased all the way round. That's great. I'm very pleased with that. So now I can drill the holes for the feet, I can drill the holes in the side for these bits and pieces, and look what arrived. I'd forgotten. Isn't that a thing of beauty? I tells you. And it's identical to that one. You have to look around because they range for sort of in the UK, sort of, you could pay £40 for something like that. People who don't know any better. I think I got it for about £12. You just have to search for them. In fact, let me tell you where I got it from. Here we are, Getty Crafts, which on eBay, Getty Crafts, and they're actually based in the US, but it was a free postage. Isn't that amazing? So, Getty Crafts, that's how I got it off, and it is just such a beautiful thing. It's so lovely that you can still get these. They're bullcock valve floats for toilet systems, and these are just gorgeous. Now what I need to do is drill a 15mm hill in the side of the front for a piece of copper tube so I can have some bendy bits attached. What never ceases to amaze me is that I haven't got a 15mm Forstner bit or flat bit. I have finally managed after years to buy myself a high-speed twist drill bit that's 15mm. It's absolutely ridiculous. So I'm just going to have to use the big one I've got. But I have, however, ordered two Forstner bits, 15mm and 10mm. If you remember, I do love... what am I trying to... I don't know what I'm pointing the camera up. There's a Forstner bit. Oh well. They're lovely because they cut flat bottoms, they cut evenly all round. They're an absolute joy to use. But for the time being, I have to do it like this. High-speed steel into low-speed wood. Am I going to hide everything with my hand? I expect so. Never mind. Oh. Well, it's almost round. That'll be good enough. That's fine. Look at that. And if I glue a nice brass olive on, that does look lovely. It hides the coarseness of my hole. Now what I think I'll do is to start working on assembling the governor. That's it. Now if you remember, I'd made these two bits. We've got some more exciting bits to cut out. And here they are. Oh, what a joy. I'd made these bits before, if you remember, without losing any digits. And then these ones, they're done in the same way on the bandsaw. Drill the hole first and then do the bandsaw. I've got to make the top and the bottom spinny butterfly shaped things. So I've drilled 3mm holes in the sides. I need to drill out the middle, but first I'm going to use the sanding machine and my eye-hand coordination, hopefully, to get rounded bits. There we are, not at all shabby. One for the top, slightly different shape, one for the bottom. Look what else has arrived, having struggled to drill that 10-15mm hole yesterday. Look, beautiful Forstner bits. Oh, one of those tools that you think, why have I waited so long? 15mm and 10mm. Absolutely beautiful. I may not like their dishwashers. Currently I still like their tools though. I'm just turning down this bit of the governor that moves this bit of the governor up and down. I've got to get it all nicely turned down. Beautiful, going well, and then stopped it, wound the tool out of the way and forgot that I hadn't taken the tool out, wound the tool away and it just snapped the end off. What a pain. Back to square one. That's better. Right. Now I can use a little sanding drum, because by the look of it I need to round off the edges here so they fit into that socket bit thing. They're so nice to use, because even though that's too wide you can just go round. It's very enjoyable, just adding those shapely bits. And now we have the shapely bits added, that then fits over there. As you can see, that's got a lot of movement about which this bit can pivot. That's nice. I just remembered I need to drill a pivot hole through this bit, I seem to remember. That's right, I just checked on the original. That fits in there, and then that's got a pivot, so I better measure them pretty carefully. I'm getting all the bits together for the governor. I've got this beautiful brass tube, you can get it from model shops. That is 5mm diameter outside, this is 4mm diameter outside. Look, that just slides in beautifully. How lovely. And if you drill a hole of, this is 5mm, so 5.1mm through the acrylic, it just slides on. I've got to glue these three bits together for the bottom. That's lovely, and then that spins on the 4mm central part. I'll get all the bits made up and assembled so that I can prevaricate even longer before starting to paint stuff. Now to start on this nice big wheel at the back, and it's a silver centre and a gem. Like I mentioned before, I left the middle bit hollow, basically to cut down on weight, and also it meant it was big enough to cut the other gear out of. So I've got this disc, oh, wretched reflections. This disc has a 12mm hole to which a gem beautifully pushes. The thing is, if that fits on there and screws on, we haven't got anywhere to fix a shaft to it. So the trick is, dear friends, to cut out a nice lump of 10mm thick acrylic with a rough hole in the middle, drill it out precisely to 4mm, then get a lovely little turned down brass jig with a 4mm bit on one end, push that in there, then this, look, so I can glue that on perfectly, and I know that will be completely and perfectly centred. Another little top tiplet for you. These gears are obviously cut out of 10mm acrylic. The reason that they don't need to be this thick, but when I was building the first episodoscope, I was using leftover bits that I'd found from other inventions, one of which was the barometric prognosticator 3, so that's why these gears are this shape. When on my laser cutter, because it's 60 watt and it's recommended not to run it above 40 so that the optics and everything last a long time, it gets thicker, the cuts get thicker, the parts get thicker as the cut goes down. And that can cause problems if you've got two that are going down and getting larger at the base. So what I do is to flip one over. Then that goes at that angle, and this one goes at that angle, and then they mesh nicely. I've also just put that on a M4 bolt in the lathe and just turn the front down and just cut the front pointy bits off the teeth. So there's the front bit of this, and at the back there's another pulley, an ornate one, even though you're not going to see it unless you come and peer around the back. But that's the one that's driven by the spring link thing from the motor there, so let's get that built. Actually, it's very interesting trying to get the different levels, because it's quite restricted at the back. I didn't want to make it too big, but just having all these gears just lined up so they all work together. Back to my lovely jiggly boo. So we've got the prong in the middle, 4mm, drilled those centre holes out to 4.1 so they just slip over nicely. Got a couple of 4mm rivets either side, So I can now glue these together just so I can cope with all these different bits. Just trying to remember what bits go where. So at least that's one thing that I can glue together. I can't put it off any longer. I've got to do some painting. I've had my extractor, which is there, that's it, on for the last sort of couple of hours. So that should be cycling through all the air in the workshop, taking out any flecks of dust. One of the main reasons for getting this done today is that it's my wife's celebrating her birthday with some friends coming over later, and they want to sing karaoke, and obviously this being the Disco Inferno, I need to try and clear a space. I've been peeling off these protective coverings from the acrylic for ages, thinking, well, there's no dust underneath it. I don't know why I've got paranoid about dust suddenly, but I have. So leave it to the last minute or something or other. Thing is, as you peel this off, it creates a huge static charge. The dust just goes straight to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel that off and that off, and then give it time to settle and for the charge to dissipate. And then fingers crossed, I do have a session of wet and dry coming on. Well, it's the moment of truth. I can't put it off any longer. Oh, this is the iffy one. Huge open areas. Oh. Well, it's not too bad, but then you look down here, it's just so frustrating. You can't hide it, you can't ignore it, a huge speck. It's interesting, or possibly not, that once I've actually sprayed it with brass or whatever, our subsequent coats, I never have a problem with dust or anything. It's literally before the first coat, and I'm wondering whether brass is metallic, it must have little particles of metal in, and once you've covered the plastic with that, perhaps it just grounds everything and gets rid of any sort of charge that builds up. Do let me know your thoughts on that, because dust and spray painting is the bane of my life. I know a couple of people in the past have mentioned ionising things, those air ionisers nearby that would negate, or well, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'd be interested to hear any ideas you have. Oh dear, I've got the black one. Black, as you know, shows up in little specks of dirt. At least it does on clothing, fingers crossed. So much for getting ready for karaoke. There's one on top of there. There's this here, there's other pieces resting, yes. Fingers crossed I'll get another couple of coats on each bit and then put them somewhere safe. When she moves, my brain screams out this song. It's a couple of days later, and a few other bits and pieces to do. Recovered from the karaoke, my poor ears. And now what we've got are loads and loads of lovely painted items ready for assembly. They've all been sitting here painted for sort of, well, 3 days or whatever. So I reckon the next thing to do really is to get the bellows stuck on, because I just have to finish building the front and the back bit, the wooden bits, ready to put all these other bits and pieces on. But before I start doing that, I just had to show you this. I've just buffed it. Oh, look at the shine, the sheen, whatever it is, roaming in the gloaming. Look at that. And the grain of the wood, that's lovely. And all the little details that have come up. Oh, I'm very pleased. I do like wood, it's fantastic. So I reckon the first job is to stick the front of the bellows, the smaller parts, onto this square of plywood or rectangle. And to do that, I'm going to use the Bostik multi-purpose clear glue, because it's sort of spirit based. It's also contact adhesive, which is great. So you got what I've found in the past. I was going to do one side at a time. It's a bit awkward with the last one. It helps to manage the chaos. Put glue along there, put glue along here, wait a few minutes, and then stick it down. And the fact it then stays is wonderful. And then what I personally like to do is to get a spatula or whatever, and it's perfect just for running along the insides and also the outsides, depending on which way the fold is, just to make sure that the contact adhesive is really pressed down. So I'll leave that for a while, but I'm very pleased with that because it all lines up beautifully along the back. That's going to screw onto the front bit. So the next thing I suppose is to glue the back of this on to this part that I prepared earlier. Not beating my own trumpet, but I have to say I am really pleased with how these bellows have come out. They are all really symmetrical and even, crisp and deep and even. Very pleased with them. I just discovered that I'd made the bottoms of these too wide, so they'd sort of overhang underneath. So I thought I'd be clever, use some masking tape and saw a little bit off. And then I was sawing a little bit off and the bandsaw blades just snapped. I thought it was going to go soon because as every time it went round you could hear a click where the weld, I assume, was sort of starting to change shape. Anyway, it's not the end of the world. I have a spare one and it was getting a little bit too blunt. You know what it is, you get used to things over time. When you really have to push it hard, you think this is not a hot knife going through butter anymore. Bandsaw blades always come wrapped in a very clever way, a potentially dangerous way, because they've wound, there's a certain way of winding them into 3 separate coils. If you try and undo it, you can quite possibly cut yourself really badly. So I seem to remember health and safety used to say, you do it like that. Excellent. I'll tell you what, having a new blade is a joy. I just can't believe how much joy it brings me to saw through things like that now, because they really just easily drift through. Lovely. So here's the original front, and here's the new one. What a joy it is. Everything's lining up and fitting on perfectly. I'm so pleased. Having trimmed those 2 feet at the bottom, you can see they stop now at the back of the bit of wood. It's lovely. All the holes line up, and there's the engraved title. And on the original one and on this one, there's room for a gauge, and it's the steam head gauge. So I'll cut that out with a pair of scissors, get that glued in. Oh, and 3 more little brass screws. Lovely. And then I've got to make these 5 or 6 typewriter style key things. So I want to make those, but also I want to make these and these. There's also another one of those back there. I had a quick look on the CAD drawing and I found them. How lovely. So I've got them on the laser software. All these are going to be 10mm. So let's get them cut out. I won't video this because it's going to take ages and ages. What I can do though is I can glue those bits, the bellows, onto the front of that, because then, despite the appearance of its difference, it's not adjustable, is what I'm trying to say. I wanted it to look adjustable, you know, with all these adjustable things, but it was just too complicated and unnecessary. So I'm going to glue that on, and then I can work out how to fix some wood between the back and the front to hold it all rigid. I'm so pleased that I thought of having the bellows attached on one end and one side with screws, because it just makes it, you know, even though the original one was a one-off and I've subsequently made others, it's really nice because it just makes sense, because I can get that glued down, pieces of rigid wood in here to support the front, all of that done. And then when I'm ready, I can screw the front panel on from the inside. Oh, will you look at that? What a joy. And it's squeezy as well, because I suppose it's bellows. That I'm very pleased with. That's glued on perfectly. And it's all symmetrical around this side, about 80mm. However, I did notice that That is about 3mm lower than that side. It's all slightly twisted. I suppose sort of compound areas in all of these creases, so I'll work that out at some point. During the meanwhile, I'm making these little keys. There's a back bit, 3mm thick, that I couldn't work out what they were for. There's the 5mm ring that I just cut out. They push together like so, and then you've got the 4 little dimples around the outside of here, so you can just drip. Once it's together, you can drip a bit of super glue into each hole, and it gets drawn down by capillary action and sticks the back on. And I've got some 4mm hardwood, you'd never know the difference, and I'm just going to cut that to the right length and then glue 6 of them in, and then spray them silver. Then I can engrave the front bits and glue them in. Then it should look something like that. In fact, it should look exactly like that, other than the fact the customer wants all the engravings to be brass, so black on brass. So I'm just going to have to spray up some of my laminate, that's it, with brass paint first. I'll get there in the end. I'm watching some film on Amazon Prime, and I never respond to them. The minute the adverts come on, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Amazon Prime, whatever it is, I mute the sound and close my eyes. Well, not close my eyes, I don't have to. I can look down here. But it means, and I never buy anything at a principle that I've been advertised at, because it just annoys me. It goes against all my principles. So their algorithms are feverishly trying to work out what they can try and get me to buy, what I might be interested in. Currently, it's wrinkle removing skin cream for women. Lovely. That, and for some reason loads and loads of nappies. That's great. I really enjoy at least feeling that I'm really screwing up their algorithms and everything. So there's one of the things, and there's a little dot inside. I was pleased to come up with this design rather, for making them, because everything, all the glue bits and things are hidden. All this is going to be hidden by the engraving, which is lovely, so it works out really nicely. I'm just doing it on some brown tape as always, so that glue that comes out the back won't glue everything to the table. I've got the buttons lovingly mounted ready for painting, so let's do the last little bit of silver painting. Thanks very much for watching, having just recorded the intro. I hope you found it interesting and enjoyable. Hope to see you next time.